to be talking about the power outages, national security, and the global grid. What's really happening out there? Well, let's talk about it and break it down. There's a lot of talk out there about power grids, blackouts, national security, and no, just not in the US, but around the world. Have you noticed in Finland? Finland is warning about a potential power shortages. Other nations are questioning their energy independence, and here at home in the USA, we're seeing more concerns about the stability of the national power grid. What is really going on? There's a lot of things happening in politics, but let's just keep this on energy. Is this just an energy issue, or does it tie into something much bigger, though? Politics, global alliances, or even Bible prophecy? Let's break it down. The global power connection. Most people don't even realize how interconnected the world's power grids are. Energy is not just a local issue, it's an international issue. The US power grid has three major parts. We're talking about the Eastern, Western, and the Texas grids. But even in Texas, which is mostly independent, it still imports some power from Mexico and other sources. In Europe, countries rely on each other even more. Finland, very interesting, for example, imports electricity from Sweden, Norway, and Estonia. But now they're actually warning their citizens of potential power shortages and prepping them on how to survive and what to do. Because global energy markets are shifting and governments are making tough decisions about energy independence. This raises a big question. Should nations control their own power, or should they depend on others? Nationalism and energy independence is what we're talking about. Over the past few years, we've seen a rise of nationalism. Countries are wanting to put their own interests first. This is not necessarily a bad thing, but the way things are set up and have been for the last long centuries here, it complicates global energy policies. For decades, the world has depended on cheap energy from different sources, including oil, gas, nuclear, and renewables. But as nations start pulling away from global agreements and relying more on themselves, energy becomes a strategic weapon rather than just a resource. Some are arguing that energy independence is essential for national security, while others are worrying that cutting off international cooperation could cause more shortages and higher prices. Here's where it gets very interesting. If you take a look at the Bible, it actually talks about nations becoming divided in the last days, turning inward instead of working together. Take a look at Matthew 24:7. Jesus warns that nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. We're seeing this now, not just with war, but with economic and energy battles. Why are we seeing more power outages? And why are we seeing more plane crashes lately? Is it all connected? Your guess is as good as mine. But we know that things ain't the way they used to be. We are not in Kansas anymore. Aging infrastructure is an issue. The U.S. power grid is decades old, and in many places it's struggling to keep up with demand, especially with the demand that we have now. I mean, it's a pretty big population. Cyber threats are a serious thing. Hackers are increasingly targeting power systems. A major attack on the grid could leave millions in the dark. And extreme weather. More storms, heat waves, and cold snaps are pushing the grids to the limit. And that's before we talk about all the energy it'll require for AI, which all the countries seem to be racing toward at the same time. I wonder why. Do you think there's anything to it? So let's talk about energy transitions. As countries move and change their energy and start coming more inward with it, then old power plants may be replaced with new ones. And the book of Revelations in 6:6 warns of a time when resources will be scarce. It says a quart of wheat for a denarius and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and the wine. Now, some scholars that I've listened to have actually says they believe this refers to economic instability, where essentials are actually hard to find at this time. Could energy be part of this? There's definitely a political divide out there. And let's take a look at the bigger picture. Okay, politically, the issue is divided. One side says energy should be global and cooperative, while the other side says energy should be independent and national. Some argue we need energy independence to protect ourselves from foreign control. Others believe international cooperation will keep the prices low and prevent global conflict. But at the end of the day, power is about control, and whoever controls the energy controls the economy. That's why nations are fighting over energy policies, because the future depends on it. Their future depends on them fighting for enough energy for them to function. Could this be something bigger, even bigger? Revelations 13, 16, and 17, we read about a system where people cannot buy or sell without control from a central power. Some believe the energy crisis could push the world toward more centralized control. Is this the start of that system, or is it just a normal shift in global power? Well, who knows? Your guess is as good as mine. But there is some things we can do about it. So let's look at that. What's in our focus of control? What can we do? And what does it mean for us? First, be aware that it's even an issue. Pay attention to the energy policies. I'll tell you this, if your energy bill has went up in the last 3 months, like shocking, you're not alone. There's a lot of people's energy that's went up. So be aware, it's not just you. Pay attention to the energy policies because they affect everything. Your electric bill, your gas prices, and even your national security. At this time, have you noticed, has the electric company in your area came out and gave you a new electric meter? Well, just so you know, you're not alone. This is happening more and more. People are not even being told the electric company's coming out and their meters are being changed. Some say it's just procedure and, they have to upgrade the meters every so often. So some say it's something bigger. Second thing we can do, prepared. Have backup power sources like a generator, solar chargers. Power outages could become more common. And remember, it doesn't mean death if we can prepare. Our ancestors lived without power for a long, long time. So we'll be just fine. But if we have some prep, not crazy, but just a little smart, realizing the times. And finally, stay grounded in your faith. No matter what happens with politics, the grid, or global conflicts, Isaiah 41 tells us that our God is in control. He reminds us, do not fear. Fear is false evidence appearing real. Okay? He says, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. Find comfort in that. But what do you think? Are power struggles leading us to bigger shifts? Or is this just a temporary crisis? Let me know in the comments. And remember, as always, the sun always rises. And I'll see you in the next video.